What if the moment that shocked a nation wasn't the collapse itself, but the silence that followed? When Charlie Kirk fell to the ground during what was meant to be a routine rally, the world didn't just witness a tragedy, it witnessed a mystery unfold in real time. The crowd screamed, phones went up, and confusion consumed the scene. But amid the panic, one figure stood out, not because of what he did, but because of what he didn't. Mikey McCoy, Kirk's close aide and longtime associate, remained eerily still, and as others rushed forward, he simply turned and walked away. Within hours, that single, calm departure became the focus of national outrage, online obsession, and 1,000 unanswered questions. Before we dive deeper, make sure to subscribe for more detailed reports and ongoing investigations like this one. Charlie Kirk's collapse was as sudden as it was surreal. Witnesses described the moment as almost cinematic. One second, he was speaking with conviction, gesturing toward the audience, and the next, his voice cut off mid-sentence. The microphone hit the floor with a sharp crack that echoed through the hall, followed by gasps and screams. The security detail rushed in, forming a barrier around the fallen figure. Someone yelled for medical assistance. Phones were recording, live streams were still running, and chaos spread in every direction. It took less than 30 seconds for the crowd to realize something was terribly wrong, but by then, confusion had already turned to panic. Kirk's supporters wept openly as paramedics pushed through the masses. Others speculated in real time: heatstroke, cardiac arrest, poisoning, or even foul play. But while the crowd's reaction was human and frantic, Mikey McCoy's was not. Standing a few feet away, he didn't flinch. He didn't reach for Kirk, didn't shout for help, didn't even look alarmed. Instead, after a few long seconds, he turned and calmly walked off stage, slipping out of view. That composure, or detachment, depending on interpretation, became the instant spark that ignited a storm of suspicion. It's that image, more than the fall itself, that haunts viewers. In clip after clip, McCoy appears as a still figure in a frame full of motion. Multiple camera angles later surfaced, captured by attendees from different parts of the venue. In each one, his movements, or lack thereof, remained consistent. He stood perfectly still for roughly 10 seconds after Kirk collapsed, his expression unreadable, before walking away, without once looking back. For investigators, that might mean nothing. For the internet, it meant everything. Within hours, the footage was everywhere, looped, slowed down, zoomed in, dissected frame by frame. Hashtags began trending before the rally even ended. Commenters pointed to subtle details: the stillness of his posture, the way he seemed to glance toward security before leaving, or the fact that he exited through a side door that staff normally didn't use. Amateur analysts turned to pixelated screenshots and microexpressions, suggesting everything from shock-induced dissociation to calculated withdrawal. Every millisecond became evidence. Every motion became motive. But the digital storm didn't stop at observation. It evolved. People began comparing McCoy's reaction to footage from historical moments: assassinations, political collapses, sudden deaths caught on film. The most common comparison was to archival clips of public figures surrounded by aides who reacted instinctively, with urgency and emotion. McCoy's calmness, in contrast, appeared alien. That contrast fed the online narrative that something was being hidden, or someone was hiding something. Witness accounts only deepened the confusion. Several attendees claimed McCoy seemed in shock, staring blankly as though frozen. Others insisted his demeanor was deliberate, even eerily controlled. A man seated in the second row told reporters that McCoy didn't move a muscle, like he knew it was coming. Yet others described him as pale and visibly shaken. Inconsistency, in this case, became fuel. Each new recollection added to a growing pile of contradictory testimonies that blurred the line between memory and speculation. Then came Pastor Rob McCoy, no relation to Mikey, who addressed the mounting outrage. In a public statement, he urged calm and rejected what he called reckless digital hysteria. He reminded followers that speculation serves no one and that moments of grief should not become arenas for accusation. His tone was conciliatory, almost pastoral, but the timing and the message divided opinion. Supporters of transparency accused him of damage control. Others applauded his restraint, calling his response a rare voice of reason amid chaos. Yet the fact remained. The public wanted answers, and official channels were offering none. Weeks passed with no full official footage, no comprehensive report, and no public statement from Mikey McCoy himself. Authorities cited ongoing review and respect for the family, but the longer the silence stretched, the louder the questions grew. Why had no uncut recording been released? What did the offstage cameras capture? And why did every official update feel deliberately vague? Transparency, once the cornerstone of public trust, seemed to dissolve into secrecy. That silence created a vacuum, and online, vacuums never stay empty for long. Theories flourished across social platforms, from the plausible to the absurd. Some claimed McCoy was protecting himself from an unknown threat. Others suggested deeper involvement, spinning elaborate plots about political enemies and internal betrayals. The more restrained voices asked why no independent medical confirmation of the cause of death had surfaced. Meanwhile, countless anonymous accounts emerged, claiming to have inside sources or unseen footage. Every rumor gained traction because no one in authority was filling the gap with facts. And then came the historical framing, the eerie comparisons to moments in history when leaders fell and loyal aides either failed to act or acted too quickly. From Robert Kennedy to more recent public figures, commentators began drawing parallels, not because the circumstances were identical, but because the imagery rhymed. The still aide, the fallen leader, the confusion, the unanswered questions. These associations transformed an isolated tragedy into something far larger, a cultural symbol of distrust and perceived manipulation. As traditional media hesitated, online communities took over the narrative. Forums compiled timelines, slowed videos, mapped crowd reactions, even analyzed ambient sounds to identify missing seconds. When no one provides the full story, people start writing their own. And that's exactly what happened here. The lack of an official record became the story itself. In this case, it wasn't just what people saw, it was what they didn't see that shaped the nation's perception. The silence around the footage, both literal and metaphorical, became its own kind of noise. It wasn't just what people saw, or didn't see, that stirred unease, but what they felt should have been said in the aftermath. Every moment, without clarification, every pause between official updates seemed to echo louder than any spoken statement could. In the vacuum of explanation, speculation flourished. Social media timelines filled with half-truths, assumptions, and pixel-by-pixel analyses of McCoy's expression, his posture, even the direction of his gaze. The quietness of the official channels transformed into a thunderous roar online, as millions tried to decode what silence itself might mean. Each absence of response was quickly interpreted as proof of conspiracy. When people are denied answers, they often create their own, and those creations, born out of impatience and distrust, tend to spread faster than verified facts. Every vague statement issued by authorities was treated not as a sign of caution, but as evidence of deliberate misdirection. The public imagination, once ignited, became unstoppable. Commentators on podcasts, TikTok investigators, and self-styled analysts on Reddit threads all joined in, convinced they were uncovering truths hidden in plain sight. By the time investigators finally hinted at preliminary findings, the online narrative had already hardened into conviction. For many, it no longer mattered what the truth was. The visual silence had already spoken louder than any press release ever could. Once the idea of a cover-up took root, no amount of evidence could uproot it. People had seen the clip, and in that short, wordless frame, they found whatever they were looking for: confirmation of their beliefs, validation of their fears, or proof of their cynicism. The footage stopped being an artifact of an event and became a mirror reflecting the anxieties of an entire society. At its core, this incident revealed something deeper about our collective psyche in the digital era. Visual silence, moments when people expect emotion but see none, carries enormous symbolic weight. When tragedy strikes, viewers instinctively search for signs of guilt, grief, or sincerity. When those signals are absent, it feels unnatural, almost robotic. McCoy's calm departure from the scene, his steady stride, his blank face, his apparent composure, triggered a flood of interpretations. Was it shock? Denial? Or something more sinister? The same clip, seen through 1,000 different emotional filters, became 1,000 different stories. Whether McCoy's calm was a show of control or a symptom of shock, it didn't matter anymore. It became a canvas on which millions projected their own fears, suspicions, and narratives. Some saw restraint, others saw deceit. For many, his silence was louder than any spoken confession could ever be. In that moment, the public wasn't just watching an event unfold, they were participating in its reconstruction, layering their own emotions over the fragments of what was visible. It reminded us that perception often outpaces truth, especially when truth remains unspoken. We live in an era where the emotional reaction often comes before the evidence, and where viral moments shape collective understanding faster than investigations can catch up. The digital world rewards immediacy, not accuracy. And so, before the facts were known, the verdict had already been delivered, not in courtrooms, but in comment sections. The amplification effect of social media only intensified that process. One short clip, looped endlessly, evolved into a national talking point. The algorithms, designed to favor engagement over accuracy, pushed the video into millions of feeds, igniting conversation and conflict in equal measure. Each replay stripped the footage of nuance, reducing it to a meme, a metaphor, a battleground for competing interpretations. Sparse evidence morphed into an avalanche of commentary. And commentary, once emotional, began to feel like truth itself. What began as an isolated tragedy became a global Rorschach test for trust, loyalty, and power. People weren't just arguing about what happened, they were debating what it meant. To some, it was a story of betrayal. To others, it was proof of systemic corruption. And to a growing number, it was a revelation about how fragile credibility has become in an age where silence is often taken as confession. In the absence of facts, narratives became the only available reality, and those narratives grew stronger with every unanswered question. The less people knew, the more certain they became. Each rumor, each thread of speculation, added another layer to the mythology surrounding the case. The original footage became sacred text, studied and reinterpreted endlessly, its meaning shifting with each retelling. This case underscores a simple but powerful truth: silence breeds suspicion. When official voices remain muted, the public fills in the blanks. Humans are pattern-seeking creatures. We connect dots even when they don't belong together. The longer the wait for clarity, the louder the whispers become. And in an age when information moves at the speed of a scroll, a delayed response feels like deceit. Transparency isn't just a virtue. It's a necessity for preserving credibility in the age of viral evidence. Each second of withheld footage adds another layer to collective doubt. Each ambiguous statement erodes faith in institutions meant to uphold clarity. People no longer want reassurances. They want receipts, proof, data, explanation. When those are absent, conspiracy thrives. The silence that once symbolized restraint or professionalism now reads as evasion. The very institutions designed to protect the truth often end up suffocating it under the weight of cautious language and bureaucratic delay. And yet, amid the chaos, one thing remains clear. Human behavior during moments of crisis defines public interpretation far more than words ever can. McCoy's calm may have been composure, or it may have been confusion. But in the eyes of millions, it became something else entirely, a symbol of unanswered questions in a world hungry for certainty. When people cannot rely on information, they turn to emotion. They judge faces, gestures, and tones, turning every flicker of body language into evidence. The line between observation and judgment becomes dangerously thin. It's not that people want to misinterpret, it's that they need closure. They need something, anything, that helps make sense of chaos. Silence, therefore, becomes intolerable. It's seen not as absence, but as withholding. It provokes a sense of betrayal, as though those in power are keeping secrets from those who deserve the truth. And in that perception, the cycle of distrust deepens. This phenomenon is not new. History is full of moments where silence, whether strategic or accidental, has fueled speculation. From political scandals to celebrity deaths, from corporate cover-ups to criminal investigations, the quieter the authority, the louder the crowd. But the difference today lies in speed and scale. What once took months to unfold can now erupt in minutes. A single clip can redefine reputations overnight. The digital public square doesn't wait for confirmation, it creates it. Collective interpretation now happens in real time, shaped by trending hashtags and emotional consensus rather than evidence. In such a landscape, the silence of those involved doesn't just seem suspicious. It becomes a kind of participation, an implicit message open to infinite decoding. In this case, silence wasn't just the absence of sound, it was the presence of implication. Every second of quiet after the footage aired became a breeding ground for theories. Every official delay, every no comment, every unaddressed question widened the gap between what was known and what was believed. The narrative evolved beyond the control of any institution. What had once been a case file now lived as folklore, shaped by memes, debates, and digital outrage. And yet, somewhere amid that noise, there was a genuine longing for truth, for accountability, for closure. Most people weren't driven purely by malice or cynicism. They were trying, in their own way, to make sense of something that felt wrong and unfinished. But the architecture of online discourse doesn't reward patience or nuance. It rewards volume, emotion, certainty. So the quiet became a kind of provocation. The less that was said, the more people spoke. In time, even journalists and commentators began reflecting on their own role in that echo chamber. The pressure to publish, to interpret, to explain, even when the facts were incomplete, meant that silence was treated as a challenge. Every gap in knowledge had to be filled, every uncertainty translated into narrative. The collective impatience for answers transformed the investigation into theater. And as the story spread, it became less about the footage itself and more about the ecosystem surrounding it. The influencers dissecting it frame by frame, the politicians using it as rhetoric, the audiences consuming it as entertainment. Reality blurred with commentary until the two were indistinguishable. In the end, the story of Charlie Kirk's collapse became less about a single moment and more about everything that followed. The silence, the scrutiny, and the relentless search for meaning in an age when even stillness can look suspicious. The footage was only the beginning. What came after was a cultural study in how truth is formed, fractured, and redefined in real time. It's a reminder that responsible investigation demands more than observation. It requires verification, context, and courage to speak plainly, even when the answers are uncomfortable. The truth isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, procedural, slow. But in a world accustomed to speed and spectacle, that kind of truth struggles to survive. And so, the mystery endures, not because of what we saw, but because of what we didn't. The unanswered questions have become more powerful than the answers ever could be. The footage remains online, endlessly looped, endlessly debated, a ghost of reality replaying across screens, asking the same silent question over and over. What really happened that day? Until those answers come, we are left suspended in the same silence we've been trying to interpret, a silence that still feels like sound, that still echoes across digital corridors and whispered conversations. Because in this age of noise, silence is never empty. It's a statement. It's a story. It's the space where truth hides, waiting to be found. Subscribe for more in-depth reports and ongoing investigations that seek truth beyond the noise.